Okay, we've made a little side trip into evolution, and I guess this is kind of necessary, and I'm got certain limits on tape and how far I want to go today, and I'll just deal, because when I do these things, I have to follow a train of thought, and the train of thought led us here, and I'm not exactly apologizing because I think the basic idea about Eros and spice and extending the honeymoon is out there. You add spice to the day, you get intimate, you raise the temperature of things. And we're going to come back to some of this, and I'll do some more on this, I guess, because it has to be done. But this is going to be the end of the day because I got into this sidetrack, but it's a sidetrack we have to take, We have these curves. One ascending, one descending. I don't even know if you can see them. Let me do them in ink here. Okay. There's the curves. All right, one descending. All right. We know the ascending curve. We know that matter has developed into what we know today as a physical body. Now, one of the things that's going to happen in the future, and it can happen right now if people want to bother to actually pay attention to what's right in front of them, we have this inwardness. And it's only because natural science is, and this is true, they're kind of scared of religion, and I think with some legitimateness, because religion very often is stupid. The whole point of view of Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins about the stupidity of modern day religion is entirely valid. Doesn't mean it's a reason to believe there's no God. It's just that whatever these people in the religions are talking about as God somehow has to get coordinated with what natural science knows. You can't just go forward and say, poop on natural science, my God's better than your God. Anyway, so the picture I'm trying to create is not only was there a line of ascent of physical matter into the form we know today as us, there was a line of descent out of the spiritual into the human being, which is what we call soul and spirit. Now, these elements during early stages of human history did not exist as part of the human organism all day long. Okay? We were outside these physical organisms. We were outside this train of organisms. We were working on it from the outside, making it a suitable vehicle for us to be able to incarnate into, which happens now in the present. But in the deep past, we were outside it, helping higher beings form it from the spiritual. And the materialists will say, well, where's the evidence? Well, there can't be any physical evidence. You won't find it in the physical. You can't dig up a bunch of fossils. I mean, with fossils, all you've got is the bones in the first place. You don't have any of the meat. You don't have any of the flesh. And the consciousness, the inwardness, how's that going to leave a trace? It's not. Although it's there. I mean, think about it. As these two curves merge, as the spirit more and more becomes able to live full-time in matter, and as the matter gets more and more developed in order to become a vehicle for the spirit to live in, as these two curves, one of descent and one of ascent, run into each other, where they are today with modern human beings, certain things happen in the world. Tool making. Agriculture, domestication of animal life. We have this kind of vague idea that, oh gosh, well, somewhere, somehow or another, in the Bronze Age, people who used to be apes figured out how to take metals and heat them and change them into this and that and the other thing. all that age of inventiveness, we don't have the least idea how it happened. We have a lot of speculation, but we don't have the least idea. And of course, to make matters worse, I talked about before, the people working with evolutionary psychology and who want to talk about sexuality go back and they say, well, we're going to understand the human being because we're going to look at the way the animals lived. The human being is not of the animal kingdom. The human being is of the human kingdom. And the evidence for that is so pervasive, it's kind of scary, the degree to which people will say, well, we're the same. And you say things like, well, the human being has speech. Where did that come from? Well, the animal has speech. Look, we can teach gorillas to talk with sign language. The animal doesn't have speech. Doesn't have nearly a sophisticated thing that we do with speech. It's not in the same ballpark. It's not in the same galaxy. All right? It's a complete obnoxious argument that tries to save the idea that we're higher order animals. Our bodies come out of the higher order animal stream, the stream of ascent, the raising of matter into the capacity to bear the spirit. But the inventiveness, the tool making, the creation of agriculture and all the rest of the stuff comes out of the spirit, comes out of an intelligence that's slowly more and more incarnated into physical matter during the process in which matter itself was developed to be able to create the organism in which it could live. There was a communion between spirit and matter so that this could happen and we could be today, and then we could have a human organism capable of love, which is what we're talking about. Okay? We can now love. You're not going to find love out there in the veldt with the big apes. Okay? You're not going to find the capacity for self-sacrifice that human beings do. You know, you've got Richard Dawkins writes a book called The Selfish Gene, and some other guy tries to write a book called The Altruistic Gene, and they're looking in matter as if they're going to find the answer to these questions of how human beings do these really incredible things like art. How does a painter paint? How does he become capable of doing that? Because something lives in him of the divine that enables us as human beings to do things that transcend the limits and determinisms of matter. We are not matter. We're spirit. That's the essential of what we are. And if we want to learn to love, we have to sort of let go this idea that all we are is stuff. Because there's absolutely no evidence that all we are is stuff. That's an interpretation of things. That's an interpretation produced by people who ran from religion with justification because religion got crazy. But that doesn't mean that there is no spirit from a scientific point of view. But I can't get into that in this. I'm just going to assert it, and then when I get into, proof of God material where I talk about the various underlying issues, we'll get to that, but not here. Let's just talk about love. Okay? We've talked about spice and how to extend the honeymoon, and I hope maybe it will inspire some conversation between you and your partner or your girlfriend or boyfriend.